Thank you for joining us. You're listening to the Write Project podcast and radio program. This is a show about writing and modern Newfoundland author culture. This program is produced and recorded at CHMR FM 93.5 FM in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, and is aired on other great stations in the province and elsewhere in the country. It can also be heard online at www.chmr.ca. I'm your host, Matthew LeDrew, author of such novels as Touch Your Nose and Jacoby Street, and founder of Engine Books. Let's see what we have today. Okay, thank you for joining us for another wonderful episode of the Write Project podcast, this one during Poetry Month, and as such we have on our province's most famous up-and-coming poet. Everyone should know her work. She is an amazing, amazing poet who also volunteers with Spoken Word St. John's and is an amazing advocate for poets in the province. Future Poet Laureate Samm Joyy. How are you today, Samm?
What an introduction. I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm famous for my introductions. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Samm, I wanted to start off by asking a little bit about you because I'm going to get a little bit of a bio on you. Can I ask where you're from? Where did you grow up?
So I originally grew up in the Ghouls, but my childhood home, I'm mainly from Paradise.
Okay.
And I lived there for most of my life.
Okay. I have a similar situation. I'm very likely to say, if you ask where I'm from, depending on the context, I could say one of three things. And I'm always worried that someone's going to think I'm a liar. You know what I mean? That they'll have heard
Yes.
both answers. Yeah. That's wonderful. I find most people that are interested in writing or poetry or the written word, spoken word, anything like that language, have an early experience where they learn or absorb that language has power. What's an experience, do you think, where you came up? When did that light bulb for language happen for you?
So I've always been interested in the arts, and in English was like my favorite subject all through grade school. But I think it wasn't until I was in my early preteens where I really found myself or found my love for English and writing and spoken word. But I think it mainly dates back to my experience with, unfortunately, death and, the grieving process and everything like that. I had lost a loved one, and I think the only way that I learned how to communicate how I was feeling was through poetry.
Yep. That's a common thing with poets, I find. I think there is something to be said with when it comes to dealing with those big esoteric, not esoteric, that might be the wrong word, but like those big concepts that are almost beyond human comprehension. Like less words is more. Like you can definitely say more with less when it comes to that. And so poetry is actually better equipped, because when you say, if I had to write about the death of a loved one in prose, I'm going to make it too specific. It's gonna be interesting and it might be well written, but it's very specific to me. Whereas like in the way the carpet felt in the showroom where my nan was, or for my nan specifically, she asked not to be embalmed, so she was turning green by the end. There are very specific memories with regard to her. Oh yeah, it was supposed to be open casket and became closed casket because her mouth was hanging open. It was less than ideal. Yeah, it's fun. Thanks, Nick. But yeah, no, that kind of, but poetry has a real leg up in that, where like you can say more with less and make it more universal as a result,
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great. So that was the big light bulb moment of language for you. What was a big life experience that you had prior to that?
Well, I guess they kind of correlate in that regard. The the loved one of mine who passed away, I was only 5 or 6 when that had happened. And so as a toddler, child, I couldn't really find the words, or I didn't even know them at that point, to express myself. So like I said, it wasn't until my early preteens where I finally found, what I could say to, ease my own internal pain, but also to, kind of describe how I was feeling to other people.
Cool. Makes sense. Makes sense to me. And how's your view of writing changed since that big light bulb moment? Have you altered in any way? If because usually that's the start of the writing journey, and presumably we grow since then. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So I guess when I was younger, I was writing about myself mainly, from my own point of view, and I find that as I've grown as a writer and as I've changed perspectives and I've experienced a lot of different things, I found that I can now write from another person's point of view, or just I found a number of different writing styles that have suited my my niche, that don't all involve death and sad, and there's a bit of happy there somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely, that makes sense. Tell me a bit about your work with spoken word St. John's, if I can. First, tell me about spoken word in general, and then how you became involved in it. Samm Joyy, illustrious poet.
So, spoken word St. John's is a community, non-registered nonprofit organization that fills a gap in the St. John's scene. Sure. So for years, St. John's is known for all of its open mics in regards to music, and we are definitely a very musical city. And in 2013, I was very fortunate to have some really cool friends, Lori Beck, Ali Duff, Len O'Neill, Emily Kerrigan, some really cool people who had this brilliant idea that why don't we host an open mic for poetry and for spoken word? Yeah. There's 4 or 5 music open mics a week. Got to have one for us writers who can't sing. I can't sing at all. So that's where it originated from, back in 2013. So it's been going on for about 9 years now.
Wow.
Originally, I was just volunteering, and I was just reading whenever we had an open mic event. I was just an audience member at one point. And then, life happens and people move away and get jobs and all that. So it ended up in my lap, which I'm very fortunate for. So I started organizing it and hosting it, with the help of some friends. And I think I've been hosting it now since 2015 or 2016. So it's been a few years now, where it's been in my care. But it's my little baby. I love to talk about it.
Yep.
I'm just so proud, that the idea came out of not having something in the city, and then it just kept going. And we have our regulars who show up every month, and then we have all these new people, and it's so much fun, and it gives the community a place where you can learn how to speak in public.
Yep.
That's the biggest thing. I was not a public speaker, and I still get incredibly nervous every time I go up. But the whole point for me, of spoken word is to give people an opportunity to practice their public speaking skills and to share their work, with a community, an audience that's not going to judge them. We're very welcoming people. We're very funny people sometimes. But yeah.
That's wonderful. And it does. It reminds me very much of not to make it about me because it's not, but like starting engine, you know what I mean? Like there's a
Yeah.
gap in the market. When there's a gap in the market, like when you basically want something, like you probably would have just, if had it already existed, you probably would have just attended. If there was already someone doing spoken word stuff in St. John's, you would have found it and gone like, oh cool, and just attended and not been involved. And if there'd already been a publisher that published everything including genre stuff, then I wouldn't have started one, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's when you go looking for something and discover that there's a gap there and have the presence of mind to go like, oh, this could be me, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. If I'm looking for this, there's got to be someone else looking for it. And sometimes there's not. I mean, like sometimes it's like I tried to start a group once that was people who are platonically attracted in a friendship way to pineapples. And it turns out that's just me. I didn't really start that group, but I should. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes, you know, you find a gap in the market and turns out there's a reason there's a gap in the market. But
each their own.
Yeah. I don't want to actually be friends with pineapples. That's just where my brain went. Well, I was like, what's a ridiculous thing that no one would actually like? Because I don't want to like alienate anyone. So very specifically attracted platonically to pineapples, because I guarantee you there's someone who's attracted non-platonically to pineapples. Oh my, but no one wants to just go to the store, pick up a pineapple, become its best friend, and never get serious. Like, you know, if you're attracted to pineapples, you're attracted to pineapples.
You're cracking me up there.
Yeah, how did we get here? Who knows? It's a matter of conversation. It's really good to hear. I've always, I think post-COVID, I am going to try and make it down for sure, because there's some poetry stuff that I've wanted to do over the years. I'm very bad at it, so that kind of like, I'm not a poet for a reason, but that it's that kind of welcoming environment where it's like, no, nobody judges. You know what I mean? That's awesome.
And in that regard too, it's the way I see it now is that it's an open stage. We've had rappers, we had an entire band up there at one point, and we had a vocal group up there up on stage. We've had monologues and short plays and short stories. You know, the majority of it is poetry and spoken word, but I don't want to restrict it completely. You know, it's an open stage, and that's how I like to have it. Just, you know, I like to hear everything. You get creative from what you experience and what you hear around you, and sometimes somebody up there rapping will light that spark, and then all of a sudden you have a poem written.
I worked with a bunch of students in Northern Labrador, and I got hired to go up to a reservation school and produce a book of their work, the children, which was a lot of fun. And I got them all to write poems, and sat down and wrote with them, kind of thing. Some of them are wonderful, but my favorite is because a lot of people required some coaxing. You know what I mean? These are children. These are like 5 and 6 year olds. But and some of them are very cute, but some of them are so amazing. And there's one that he just had so much. He wrote a rage poem. Like, I've worked with Tracy Walden before, and she got me to write a what she calls an F-bomb poem. She actually uses the word, but where it's like, I want you to just say F this, F that, and F this, F that, like just say F all the things you don't like and put it in a pleasing order, and then that's the poem, kind of thing. And it's just a rage poem. And it's cathartic, and it's not really even for anyone else to hear, but maybe someone else will someday. And this 9-year-old, was just like, I hate this, and I hate this, and I hate this, and I hate that. I hate that in particular, and just losing his mind. And I loved it. It was amazing.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It was great. All right. Well, thank you so much. I have a bunch of questions for you. Just random,
Ooh,
random,
wonderful.
random questions. So we'll segue away from. Oh, first, if someone was interested in either performing at spoken word or just attending and seeing, if someone was like, you know what, if a group of people was like, you know what I'm gonna do today, I'm going to dress up in black turtlenecks and a beret, and we're going to go down and click at some people after they speak. Just like that. You know what I mean? If someone was like, that sounds like a fun way to spend an evening, where and when do they go to spoken word, and how can they find out about it?
So, spoken word, we have found our home at the Ship Pub.
Yep.
The atmosphere is amazing and perfect, and the staff are phenomenal. It usually happens. Now, this is okay. Pre-COVID and kind of during COVID, it usually happens once a month on a Sunday night. You can find out, we do all of our communication through Facebook, our Facebook page, Spoken Word St. John's. However, coming up now that things are changing and COVID is a learning time, we might be making some changes to future events and how often they happen.
Well, then.
But that's coming up soon
Okay.
to be announced.
So we're talking like 3 times daily?
I am a full-time student, so I don't know if I can accommodate that.
I find it ridiculous that you are not a full-time poet. That makes me very angry.
I've never published before, so
yeah, doesn't make no difference to me.
But yes,
wonderful.
So Spoken Word St. John's on Facebook is where you would find any information regarding upcoming events. Like I said, the next few months, there will be some changes and some exciting events happening, some partnerships.
Okay.
That I'm looking forward to.
Wonderful. That's great. I encourage everyone to go down. I'm going to try and make it down. I'm sadly outside the city now, or else I would have been down already. One thing I love having moved out in the Bay for several reasons. First and foremost, you can afford a house on an artist's salary, which is like, OMG, I can be a homeowner. And I'm slowly trying to convince other artists. I miss my art community. So I'm like, you know what? You can afford a house out here, and if enough of us move out here, we can turn it into Bay downtown Newfoundland. We can just gentrify this whole area and just make it like a weird artist commune. It could be fun.
I would totally join that.
That sounds like so much fun, doesn't it? What if we just did a hostile takeover of a small town and turned it into an artist hub?
Get me out of the city, please.
Yes, 100%. But yeah, no, if it wasn't for that, I'm very dismayed because I discovered a bunch of things that I would want to do in town after I left town. And it's like, time was I could just walk down the street. I used to live downtown. Samm Joyy, how long were you a part-time writer before you went full-time? I wonder why this question it can't get answered.
Yeah, I don't classify myself as a full-time writer, even though I am always writing.
Yep.
But I don't get paid for it, which, doesn't mean I'm not a full-time writer, though.
Big time. In fact, speaking from experience, I wrote more before I went full-time with it, because the business of being a full-time writer is a lot.
Yeah, I write when I want to write, which is, when I feel like it, when something pops in my head. I could be in the grocery store buying groceries, and then all of a sudden I have to stop in the aisle and type something on my phone.
Yep.
Because it's coming to my head. Yeah. Does that make me a full-time writer?
I think. Because there's a lot of I find there's a lot of vitriol sometimes with regard to people and the way that they
some people want to have this hard line between like full-time and part-time and actual writer and hobbyist writer and all this other stuff. And it's like, guys, it's not that big a deal. Like, chill out. Like, we're all just writers.
I'm a full-time student. Does that make me a full-time writer too? Because that's what I'm doing all day.
I think so. I think so. I agree 100%. Yes. Also, what are you studying?
So I went back to school to do office administration.
Well then, I will keep that in mind when I'm looking for an office administrator.
Yes.
Please. Samm Joyy, what are 3 books or movies? Actually, just books. Yeah, sorry for this. What are 3 books that you would want with you on a desert island if you had to live there for the rest of your life?
Book number 1, How to Build a Boat for Dummies.
Okay. All right.
Book number 2, Book number 2.
So you're being that's a very Matt LeDrew answer, and that's scary because when I was asked that question once, that was it. I said something like that, and then I said The Stand by Stephen King because it's a lot of pages and I'll need firewood. You know what I mean?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. And then something else annoyingly practical like that. Things that will actually help me survive, not things that entertain me.
Book number 2. Oh, see, so I'm sorry, Matt. This is a terrible question for me.
No, it's not.
I don't read.
All right.
I have a collection of books that I just don't read.
All right.
That's my only answer because that's the only book I would need.
How to Build a Boat for Dummies, How to Build a Fire for Dummies, How to Forage for Food for Dummies.
Yeah.
All right.
Terrible.
Speaking of, launching off of that, what is a book that you would like to read, but it seems really intimidating? Like, just like, I wish I was the type of person who could read that book, but I'm not.
You know, I've started and not finished Pride and Prejudice like 10 times now.
Yep.
Seriously.
Yep.
It's my favorite movie.
Yep.
But I cover, and I would love to.
Yep. That's me with Lord of the Rings. I finally forced myself to finish it because I took a course with it, but I it's not a light read. It's not fun. Yep. I will never get over authors that don't want their stuff to be fun or entertaining for the reader, like, because it's bananagrams to me. Like, it's like, this is a shared experience and this should be, fun for everyone. It should be fun for me and it should be fun for you. But no, some writers I know are like, no, you will take this seriously and wipe that smile off your face when you're reading this book. And I'm like, you must be pleasant to make love to. Holy crap. Hey, I'll take none of your shenanigans. God almighty. Samm Joyy, what is your favorite place to read, if you have one?
I do. My favorite place to read is on a beach. Unfortunately, the only beach that really appeals to me at the moment is Topsail Beach because it's the easiest to get to.
Yep.
But
Topsail Beach is not a beach. I keep arguing.
It's a park.
It's a shore. There's a difference between a shore. A beach requires sand.
But yeah, no, that's where I would normally do most of my reading if it would be outside next to an ocean.
Sounds lovely. Samm, who inspired you to write, if anybody did?
I'd say it's my parents.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. They put a lot of encouragement into my writing.
That's big. That's big. And there's something to be said for the correct amount of encouragement. Like, not just like there's not enough, there's also too much. Like, I can't count the number of arts that like I might have pursued if it wasn't for the fact that my parents took way too much interest. And I was like, nah, done. Peace out.
No, my parents did a very good job.
Okay. Excellent. Clearly, I mean, clearly. Yes. Samm, Joyy, this is a very serious question, and I will take none of your spoken word St. John's gruff on this question.
All right.
Okay. If you, Samm Joyy, were a jam, what kind of jam would you be?
This is a brilliant question. Brilliant. I would be, you know, those little packages of strawberry jam you get at like the Irving Big Stop?
Yes, the best ever.
I would be, they are the best jam,
yeah.
Hands down. I think they have the same kind at A&W, but they are the best jam, hands down. That is the jam I would be. Strawberry jam in the travel packages.
You know, that is the biggest jam company in the world, and that's all they do is make those little packages kind of thing, because they're everywhere, every restaurant, every truck stop. Do you know what drives me insane? I cannot get over it. It makes me want to pull out my hair. When I'm at a spot, like a restaurant that serves that kind of thing, and I get my toast, and they always cut the toast into like at least halves, but sometimes quarters, you know what I mean? So like each slice of toast, you get these 4, and they might pile on the toast. So you might have like 12 of these little squares. I cannot stand when I see people putting the same flavor of jam on every piece. I'm like, what's the wrong with you? There are 12 flavors and 12 little pieces, a little bit of everything.
And they're all free. What's
wrong with you? Like,
taste them all.
Yes, life is your smorgasbord at this point. Dear God, people. Samm Joyy, when you're working on your poetry, are you trying to be original? Is that your driving force when you're trying to, or are you trying to kind of deliver what you think your listeners want or your readers want? Is it for you or is it for them?
So I personally, I write for myself, but I do tend to keep in mind how it sounds and how it comes off, or how someone will read it. But mainly it's my therapy. Yeah.
And that's perfectly fine. Being original is important, but I always caution like that you also have to communicate with other people. So you have to, like, you know what I mean? It's about communication with other people, because I could write a genius book in a language that I made up and no one knows, and that would be very original. But, you know.
But you wouldn't sell very many.
I wouldn't sell a second copy to anyone, put it that way. No one would come back and be like, where's the sequel? Samm Joyy, does your work with spoken word St. John's energize you, or does it exhaust you? At the end of one of your events, are you like, yeah, and now you're jazzed up and want to do more? Or is it just, okay, time for sleep now?
Definitely energized.
Good. Okay. Cool.
I tend to write more after the event than I would before the event.
Yeah. That's awesome. Cool. I love it. That's always a good sign to me when someone's expression, even if it's like a late night thing like that, is like energizes them. It's like, oh, that person's going to be able to keep going. You know what I mean? Because it's self-feeding.
Exactly.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us for another episode of the Write Project podcast with Samm Joyy. Please check out her best-selling poetry whenever she puts out a collection, because I'm sure it will be. And check her out down at Spoken Word St. John's. Come listen, speak, take in the event. It's all wonderful. Thank you for joining us, Samm.
Thank you so much, Matthew. This is a lovely opportunity.
Lovely.
All right, well, thanks for coming on again. For all of you, we'll be here again next week at 4:30 Newfoundland time or online at chmr.ca. Please tune in and we'll talk more about writing culture in Newfoundland.